The movie begins with a jewel thief named Miles Logan preparing to perform a $17 million diamond heist in Los Angeles. Miles's accomplices include his right hand and best friend, Eddie, his getaway driver, Tully, and Deacon, the newly acquired member of the group. Eddie and Miles make their way into the building through the air ventilation while Deacon hacks into the CCTV footage from the roof and helps them navigate while avoiding the guards. Meanwhile, Tully waits for the crew in the getaway car. After helping Miles get access to the safe, Eddie returns to the roof and joins Deacon for the next stage of their plan. However, to his surprise, the new recruit reveals his true intentions. Deacon says that he doesn't want to split the money 4 ways, and saying this much, he kills Eddie by shooting him off of the tall building. Unfortunately, Eddie falls onto a police car, which sounds off alarm bells throughout the building and in the neighborhood, prompting Tully to escape. Back inside the building, Miles retrieves the diamond and somehow evades the guards to reach Deacon on the roof, but unfortunately, the greedy recruit points a gun at him and demands the diamond. As the heated confrontation goes on, a police helicopter closes in on them, and Deacon is forced to rope ride his way out to an under-construction building. Miles tries to follow the escape route, but Deacon halts his ride halfway through and again demands the diamond, threatening to shoot him. However, Miles swiftly cuts the rope from the middle, and Swing crashes his way into the building. As the police arrive, he hides the diamond in the ducts of the under-construction building, while Deacon flees. Shortly after, Miles is arrested and taken downstairs. As he is being escorted into the police car, he notices the dead body of his beloved friend Eddie, much to his shock. Despite this, he makes it his mission to retrieve the diamond at any cost. Surely the police won't think to check the building he was just in for the diamond that he just stole. Few years pass by, and Miles is released from prison. As expected, he is very excited to get his freedom back and starts shouting in the streets. Then he takes a cab straight to his girlfriend Janice's house, hoping that they can spend some romantic time together. But to his dismay, Janice breaks up with him for lying about being a criminal. Why'd she think he was in jail? Distraught, Miles promises to change and pleads with her to take him back, but she refuses to listen and shuts him out. Now, with nothing else to do, he goes to retrieve the diamond. Sadly, Miles is once again left in disbelief when he finds out that the under-construction building where he had hidden the diamond is now an LAPD police station. Despite this, he is still adamant on retrieving the valuable gemstone. To put his plan into motion, Miles enters the building and learns that the diamond is hidden in the ducts of what is now the Robbery/Homicide Detective Bureau, which requires a key card to access. Later, he researches the security measures and returns as a pizza delivery man in disguise. He asks to be let into the homicide department, but as expected, the cops deny it. Buddy, this ain't that kind of movie. Left with no choice, Miles pretends to start a conversation with homicide detective Carlson and sneakily steals his access card. Later, Miles takes the card to his shady Uncle Lou and requests him to forge a new one for him. At first, Uncle Lou is hesitant, claiming that the job is a risky one, but when Miles offers him a lot of cash, he agrees. The cash is so significant that Lou not only forges a fake card, but also a badge and some documents, which establish that Miles is a newly transferred police detective named Malone. Using this cover, he goes to the police station to retrieve the diamond. After accessing the homicide department using his fake card, Miles heads straight to the female washroom to access the docs. However, while he is at it, a prisoner in the building subdues a policeman and tries to escape from the same dock. Miles tries to hide himself, but inadvertently ends up knocking the prisoner down. The commotion attracts people's attention, and in no time the entire department arrives in the washroom. Left with no choice, Miles is forced to introduce himself as Detective Malone and explain that he stopped the criminal from escaping, impressing everyone with his bravery and quick thinking. But, unfortunately, the station chief Rizzo also hears about his bravery and decides to put his skills to the test. He calls Miles to his office and assigns him to field duty with the newly promoted detective, Carlson. Worried, Miles requests that he be offered desk duty, but Rizzo insists that brave officers like him belong on the streets. In the next scene, Carlson gets a burglary alert and heads to the scene with a reluctant Miles. On their way, he raves about Miles's impressive record as a detective. It turns out that old Uncle Lou added fictitious accomplishments in Miles's resume, which includes 16 citations, capture of 128 criminals, out of which 6 were terrorists, 7 were bomb defusals, and he even stopped a plane from being hijacked. As Carlson continues talking, he drives extremely slow, which indicates that he is very nervous and new to his life as a detective. Shortly after, they arrive at their destination, which turns out to be an auto parts store. The owner greets them and starts complaining that a thief stole 3 dozen car tire rims from his warehouse. The warehouse alarm went off, but it took the He's an hour to arrive, hence resulting in the thief's escape. Miles, who is silent all this while, finds the information somewhat odd. Since he is a thief by profession, he knows exactly how they operate and starts assessing the crime scene. Soon he deduces that it would take more than an hour for the thief to break into the warehouse and load 3 dozen heavy rims onto a truck and flee. Miles assumes that the owner is lying, and when he checks a nearby parked truck near the warehouse, he finds all the stolen items there. Caught red-handed, the owner admits to committing the fraud for insurance money, and Miles lets him go, with only a stern warning. Naturally, Carlson questions Miles's reason behind letting the owner go, and the latter explains that sometimes you have to let the small fish go to catch the bigger fish. On their way back to the station, Miles takes charge of the steering wheel and teaches Carlson how to ride like a true detective, which is overspeeding and almost crashing into other cars, just like a runaway criminal would do. After a while, Miles stops at a store for some gum, but he again finds himself in an unfortunate situation. An armed robber storms into the store and demands the owner open the cash register. Left with no choice, Miles is forced to intervene, but to his surprise, the robber is revealed to be none other than his ex-accomplice, Tully. They are stunned to see each other, and just as they recover from the shock, Carlson also storms into the store to keep his cover. Miles lets Tully escape through the back door, but unfortunately, Carlson calls for backup, and they eventually corner him in the street. Tully refuses to surrender, and Detective Hardcastle suggests calling for a SWAT team. However, to keep his secret from getting out and to stop his friend from being killed, Miles disarms himself and walks up to Tully to convince him to surrender. When the latter refuses, Miles offers to give him $20,000 and release him after a day in prison. Tully obviously agrees to that, and Miles pretends to arrest him in a stylish manner. Later, Carlson tells everyone at the department about how Miles heroically subdued a dangerous criminal with his bare hands. As days pass by, Miles's knowledge on criminal activity and the ability to foil crimes makes him quite popular among his peers. One day, Lieutenant Rizzo again calls him to his office and reveals that the burglary division has been wanting a new head and that he thinks that Miles would be the right person for the job. Not wanting to blow his cover, Miles reluctantly accepts the position. The same day, he makes another attempt to locate the diamond, but when he reaches the exact spot, he finds it missing. Later, he learns from Detective Hardcastle that one of the hot water pipes burst some time ago and flooded all the vents, because of which the department had to flush out the whole system. On the other hand, the treacherous Deacon learns of Miles's release and shows up at Uncle Lou's place. The old man denies having any knowledge of Miles's whereabouts, but a furious Deacon shoves him against a table and goes through his documents. There, he eventually finds out about Miles's new identity. Back at the police station, when Tully has to spend more than a day in jail, he threatens to out Miles, but ends up getting beaten up badly. In the next scene, Miles continues his pursuit for the diamond with the help of a remote control car. He eventually locates it in the air duct right above Rizzo's office. Later, Carlson catches Miles snooping through the ducts and inquires about what's going on. He also reveals that he looked up his name and badge number in the police records, but couldn't find anyone named Malone. Worried about being exposed, Miles lies to Carlson that he is internal affairs and that he is here on an undercover mission. Surprisingly, Carlson buys his lies and promises to keep it a secret. With little to no chance of recovering the diamond through Rizzo's office, Miles looks for a way through an adjacent room, which is the highly secured evidence room. However, before you could try to find a way in, Miles is sent out on another call. Apparently, a museum exhibit has been stolen from a cargo hold, but at the scene, they learn that the thieves have left the museum exhibits intact. The FBI is also at the scene, and Miles butts heads with FBI agent Gray over who has the jurisdiction over the crime. After a while, the LAPD is ordered to vacate the crime scene, and Miles has to oblige, but not before giving the arrogant FBI agents an earfall. On their way back, with his extensive knowledge and experience, Miles deduces that the FBI was not looking for artifacts, but drugs. He reveals that criminals often smuggle drugs into the country from abroad as cargo and steal it before it passes through customs. Miles and his squad then look for bonded trucks. These are the only trucks that can go into bonded warehouses. They call in air support and quickly spot a solitary truck riding through the busy streets. Having learned from Miles, Carlson zooms through the city and zeroes in on the truck. The FBI radios them to back off, but Miles and his squad apprehend the smugglers and capture the truckload of heroin at a traffic stop. Later that day, Miles enters the evidence room pretending to inspect the seized drugs. There, he finally manages to retrieve the diamonds and becomes ecstatic. Suddenly, Rizzo shows up and startles Miles, causing him to accidentally drop the diamond into the load of heroin. Rizzo then reveals that the FBI is taking the heroin for testing. It turns out that the heroin belongs to a notorious drug lord named Jean LaFleur, who operates for from Mexico. Not willing to let up on the diamond, a panicked Miles suggests the FBI, his police unit, use the heroin as bait in a sting operation to catch LaFleur. He also suggests that he himself will deliver the goods to the drug lord. The FBI loves his suggestion, and the operation is immediately approved. Before leaving, Miles covertly sets his friend Tully free from holding. After reaching the destination, Miles quickly retrieves the diamond, but before he can escape, Tully shows up, followed by Deacon. The latter seizes the diamond from Miles at gunpoint, but soon, LaFleur also shows up. Left with no choice, the police and FBI raid the deal. Chaos ensues, and taking advantage of the opportunity, Deacon escapes with the diamond in an armored truck. Miles runs after the truck and manages to hop on its back. Soon, the police and the FBI also start to follow. As Deacon approaches the Mexican border, Detective Woodcastle tries to get Deacon to stop the vehicle, but ends up crashing nearby. With nothing else working, Miles tries to swing his way to the front of the truck, but Deacon crosses over into the Mexican border. On his way, he drives through the barricade put in place by both the Mexican and American officials. Due to the prolonged jerk, Miles falls off the truck and watches as Deacon's van disappears from his view. The police and the FBI are forced to halt their pursuit at the border as they have no jurisdiction over Mexico. However, Miles, refusing to give up, steals a patrol car and chases Deacon. He eventually catches up to Deacon and causes his truck to crash. A few seconds later, they both emerge from their vehicles and hold each other at gunpoint. Seeing the Mexican police making their way to them, Miles offers him a deal. Deacon has to hand over the diamond, and in exchange, Miles will take him back to the US and give him a cut after selling the diamond. However, when Deacon obliges, Miles immediately double-crosses him by handcuffing him to the wrecked truck for the federales and begins to walk back to the US border. Deacon draws a gun to fire at him, but Miles turns and shoots him dead, avenging the death of Eddie. Following this, he crosses over to the US, where both the FBI and the police demand explanations. This time, Miles tells them he's an undercover Mexican officer and has to report back to his fellow federales a few inches over the border. Carlson and Hardcastle stop him, revealing that they know who he really is. However, they do not arrest him, as they are grateful for all of his help and see him as a friend. They also assure him that the FBI can't reach him, as he is a few inches over the border. After they share a bittersweet goodbye, Miles heads off to Mexico with the diamond.